Hey, everybody. Good morning. So let's get to it. Now, this morning, you're seeing a lot of action in the FRC and these names, and we're going to address that. But I think the most important thing for us to do is just really focus on the futures market right now and what exactly is going on. And we're going to look at this on a 1 minute basis. And let me get rid of these clouds because I think that'll just confuse everybody. So what we're going to do is just focus on just the basics. And what I mean by that is what's transpired today. What has happened since the Asian markets open? And that's roughly around this 4 o'clock level. So just going to mark 4 o'clock for right now. Okay. So this is 4 o'clock. And you can see since then, we've had nothing but buying, right? So from that level, and we'll say to even take from this point, you've had nothing but buying, right? So we can see that very clearly in there. And now what are you starting to see? Starting to see that trend line tested and rejected, right? All right. So we've all got that. Now, I'm only doing the 1 minute for a moment, guys. Just FYI. But you can all see that level right here. And we all know that our larger level, let's just start it, is going to be right here. Okay. We all know this. We all know where our larger level is. And we all know that it's up here around that 440. And we're familiar with this whole range from up here because we've gone over it a bunch of times. So we know where our range is, right? So we're aware of that. And the point of that, hold on 1 second. I got these little things here. There's got to be a way to move that, right? I guess not. I guess there's no way to move that. Okay. Will this do it? There we go. I figured it out. So if you look over here and you just look at this area, I mean, it's pretty clear what you should be looking at, right? Like that's a no-brainer. What area is your resistance? So what happened when we got up there on Thursday? We didn't break. Okay. Did we get through it today? No. Okay. Buying stocks when you're up here, to me, is just absolute insanity right now. Okay. So you're going to want to see something actually break above this. Now, I don't know if you break above this or not today. If you want my opinion, you're not going to. But I don't know that. All I can tell you is what I see, and I don't see how something like that is even feasible right now. So keep that in mind. Now, can the banks rally? Absolutely, they can. And my position on this is really simple. Let's just go to this NQ. Let's look at the NASDAQ mini futures before we get into it. So here's our levels, and here's what we see going on. Now, I'll tell you what I see. I see higher low, right? Higher low, higher low. All right, that's what I see. And I don't know how anybody could see anything different right now. That doesn't mean it stays that way. That means that's what I have right now. Now you can see the 12.8 became the new level. So 12.8 is support, and that is holding in there. Now, the other thing that people have to start to realize here, and I'm going to pull this over for a second so that you can see this. See how you're up 70 basis points here? And if you go to the NASDAQ futures, you're up 40 basis points. Okay, that's not where you want to be. You want the NASDAQ to always be outperforming. Okay, because the only reason that the S&P is outperforming is because you're watching certain sectors just completely start to outperform. And we saw this on Friday. Now you're seeing XLP gap up this morning, which is consumer staples. Do people buy consumer staples if they're comfortable? The answer is no, they do not. They buy them as a defensive play because they have to be involved. Look at the XLU bidding up. Okay, this is what's bidding up this morning. Now you can go and take a look at tech, and you're going to see some movement there, but nowhere near as much. And all we have are these little spots right now for me to show you. Very, very little. But the point that I'm getting at is you're seeing a big push into those names. Now, if you take a look at energy and what's going on there, right? Yeah, you're bidding up, but into what? Right into all this nonsense. So you're not really going anywhere. And I would just be real careful here about getting involved in this market until you're in a position where you see this actually transpire and play out and actually get through this level. One of the things I put out in today's private video, and I'm just going to say this to people so that they get it, because I think it's really important. The discount window, and you'll see it quoted all over the place, and the discount window will be quoted as DW, right? And the one thing about the discount window is that the highest borrow we've ever had on the discount window was this past week. It's never been higher, right? The discount window has never been higher. And I think that that is really important for people to get, right? Like, it's just never been higher. Just think of the discount window as this. Okay. This is where banks that are unable to borrow from other banks go. Okay. So if you think about the discount window, I'm going to say that again. If you think about the discount window, and I'm going to go off on a little bit of a tangent here, it feels like, because I think this is really important for people to get. You borrow from a bank, pull this up here, right? They all change between banks. So you have someone like FRC, right? And let me just, so you get this. Okay. And candidly, I have a short position in FRC. I've done nothing with it this morning. You have FRC. FRC wants to borrow from, let's say, like JP Morgan, right? Let's just say that this is Bank B, right? That's an awful circle. So let's make a better one. So we're just going to say that that's like Bank B, right? And then we're going to just say that this is Bank A, and Bank A is in trouble, right? Let me just put this here, and then you can all make fun of my drawings. So now here's Bank A, and they want to borrow from Bank B. Let's say it's JP Morgan. Remember when they took in 30 billion in deposits? Now you can't take in those deposits. Well, then they go to the discount window, which is I'm going to leave it in red, which is a kind of last resort, right, of such. So the borrowing last week was higher than the great financial crisis, then the pandemic. And I'm supposed to assume that it's all fixed because they're telling me everything's okay. And the answer is the reason that you're having this problem has not even remotely been touched yet. So until they fix the actual problem, I don't see that. I don't see a reason to get involved. Now, I will say this. If you look at the XLF and you look at the weekly, well, for now, you're holding right in there, and you're holding this level. And you have to understand that you're holding that level, and you have to respect it. But until I flip this doji one way or another, I have no interest in doing anything here long-term. Very, very little long-term. I don't know how you could look at this and think that you're not going to come in one day and see another problem. I just don't get it yet. And until I understand that, someone's going to have to explain to me how everything all of a sudden is fine when nobody still wants to buy, the assets or invest in First Republic Bank. So they're just going to have to explain to me how it's all okay now. I just don't get it. And, the banks that I would look, the banks that are out there that are buying assets, I'm not saying every bank's going to zero. Of course they're not. But the banks that are buying assets, they're the ones that you're going to want to watch. Give me a second. I'm going to get some more coffee. So if you look at banks like, this is First Citizens, they're buying the SIVB, and you can see clearly how all of a sudden you're just going to come in and you're going to be up like 30% today, but you're back to these levels. So where's your edge now? You really don't have one, right? But this is why you're rallying, because some banks are fine. I'd be real careful with the banks until you see stability. Okay. It's JP Morgan that's hitting 6-month lows, right? It's not just FRC that's lost 90% of its value. And if everything's fine at FRC, well, then it should just be going right back to 120 or 60, right? Instead, I'm supposed to get excited because it's up $3-4. So you really got to think this one through, guys, and just play at your own risk with those names until this settles down. You are seeing things get a little bit better so far this week than last week, but just to be clear, it's Monday. So, keep that in mind. It's Monday morning, and I'm not going to get overly excited and just go, oh, everything's, we're back. Thank God. The crisis is over. I've seen too many of these stories play out, and that's not how it ends. Watch the 13,000 level, see how that goes, and we'll go from there. As far as individual names, you're just continuing to see money flow into the large cap tech. I always get asked about Tesla, and I'll cover that before I take questions. But once again, you're seeing Tesla bidding up. You have a huge DTL here, downward trend line. So you're probably just going to want to watch that, make sure that you actually break that before you go super heavy. But that could get you to 198, 199 before you even got up there. So that's not the worst spot to be if you're looking for a trade, but I don't know, high or low, or lower high, lower high, lower high. Is that something I really want to get involved with? And I would say the answer is no, I don't. So that's where my head would be with it. I would be looking for greener pastures. Now, NVIDIA is one we've been playing with for some time. And I like the name. I am not sure that we're just going to miraculously push through this 275. I have it like 273. And you can see the battle going on here. Let me show you that. So you can see all these wicks up here over and over again, right at that level, right? So I don't know that we're just going to blow through that, but it's definitely something that's worth watching. And it's certainly a level that I'm paying attention to, so you might want to watch that level. Now that's 7-8 points. To some people, they're going to be like, well, that's plenty for me. And if that's what you're looking for, that's fine. Some of these names I'm looking to make and hold for longer periods of time. And that's really how I'm viewing them. So I don't see the sense in buying that here with the risk versus reward. I just don't have the same level of, I would say, upside that we once had, and kind of go from there. Now, as far as other banks, I still like this preferred MTB PH. We'll see how that goes. I just don't see the reason to do a lot here, guys. I just don't see it yet. So, I'll be sitting on my hands a lot today. I'm still, just so you understand where my head is, I'm still net short, and I started shorting more on Friday. So I'm probably down in those. It's fine. It's not a big deal. Just cover if I get concerned. But I don't see anything that is like glaring to me that's telling me that I need to be getting super aggressive here. And so what I would just advise everyone to do, and it's just very simply my opinion, is just relax. Just let this all settle in and see what it's going to do, right? You can see the higher high peak here, the higher high, or the lower high here, the lower high there, right? The lower high on Friday. So Wednesday, Thursday, Friday on Apple. And, I'm having a hard time that I'm supposed to be getting excited about this. Now, start making a higher high, right? For the first time. Well, that's a change. And that's something I'll pay attention to, right? But until that, this is what I have. So I'm not getting overly excited here. The only bank that would interest me, or does interest me, is Goldman. And the reason for that is because they've been holding that 305 over and over again. Now, that still puts me at a 6-month low, but I did not take out that lower low. So that would be the one that if I was looking like super long term, that would be of interest to me, that I haven't done that. Now, this chart's just awful, right? Like there's nothing redeeming about this chart. Pardon me. There's your break, and you can see your break. But if you take a look at something like a JP Morgan, you have to ask yourself, why did we take out the low? Why is JP Morgan breaking down and taking out a low where Goldman is not? I think it's pretty clear, but I think that they're going to have to buy FRC in some or all the parts, something. And I think that's why you're seeing what you're seeing right now. I think that's why you're seeing the move you're seeing. So we're going to have to watch this, and we're going to have to watch how this plays out. But I don't see a reason to do much here in regards to that. I have a position on stuff. Everyone, I have a position FAZ. I'm down in it. I'm not doing anything with it, guys. Like nothing's changed here for me in regards to these banking names. Just so I'm clear, if people are in these kinds of names and they're uncomfortable with these gap downs and gap ups, you probably shouldn't be in this kind of market trading, and you certainly shouldn't be playing around in the banking names, because you're going to have massive volatility right now, just massive, because everyone's trying to position for, it's definitely going to come back to 50, right? Like you have all those games going on. And I don't think people are fully getting the issue yet. And that's kind of one of the reasons why I spent time on the magnitude of the discount window. I'm not saying they're all going to zero. I mean, there's some really interesting banks out there, like, Regions has zero really to worry about, and is just getting absolutely annihilated. And you can see it's never even come back down and tested that level. There's a reason for that. And it's definitely one that if you were looking long-term that you'd want to own. It's definitely one that I would be paying attention to. But Deutsche Bank, you're going to have to excuse me if I don't think everything's fine, because they told me everything's fine. And I'm glad you're trading up today. And I'm glad people are happy that it's trading up. But, I'm just not believing it just yet. We'll see how this finishes the day. I'd be real curious about the amount of people that are going to feel the need that they need to get in there and they really need to buy Deutsche Bank right now. I just don't know who's going to do that. I think you're going to get squeezed on the short covering. I think that could happen. I think you can get up to 1029, but I don't know who's saying, what I need right now? I need more bank exposure. I don't know how many institutions are saying that right now. I don't think a lot. So keep that in mind. And I just want to see if there's something else before I take questions. I thought there was at least one more that I really wanted to go over that I thought was interesting. This is pretty interesting to me, and it's a smaller guy, and I don't really trade these, but I like this. And I like this because you're holding that base here. So if you click off all my drawings and we put in this with AI and we just take a look right here, you have a base. That's pretty obvious. And it's pretty obvious up here that you have these wicks, right? And we all know wicks are price rejection. So you can see potential targets. Now, I find this interesting. I really do. And we're going to have to see how it plays out, because this is one huge flag, like enormous flag. Do this flagpole, and then you start getting tighter and tighter, right? Well, that's what you want to see. That's the kind of stuff you want to see. Okay, that's of interest. When you're starting to see things like that, even this one I was looking at, and I don't really like these smaller names right here. I really don't. But so when you see stuff like this, it's kind of interesting. So you have the breakout on earnings, huge volume, and all you did was come back down and hold. One of the top names I'd be watching if I was you guys this week would be this. So AEHR. And I know people are looking at it going, oh, it's moved too much. Well, if you take a look at the last three earnings plays, you can see right here, and you can see the huge gap up, right? You can see here, you can see the gap up. I'll say it one more time. You can see it here, and you can see the gap up. So do with that what you will. They have earnings this week. I believe it's Thursday. Yep. And we'll go from there. I'm willing to take questions if you have them, and we can kind of bonk around here for a little bit. So yeah, so I'll go through a couple things. First and foremost, for me, I'm short IWM. I have no interest in covering it. And to me, it's broken. Now, a lot of people are looking at the banking names, and that's why IWM's moving. And I'm not knocking that. I want to be really clear about that. Like I'm not knocking the move. What I'm saying is that you just need to understand why that move is happening. And then if you believe that the banking crisis is over, you should be a buyer. If you believe the banking crisis is over and you believe that this is going to hold that level, right, and just really just all of a sudden turn around here on virtually no news, just because we're, quote, oversold and it got too far, That's on you. And this is my downward trend line, and I've cracked it, and I broke that level. I'll show you this on the weekly. And you can see this right here. These are notes from the newsletter. If you don't get the newsletter, link in description. But you can see right here, I mean, we broke. It's actually even worse than that. It's actually up here. It's actually even a worse break than that. You know, if I want to get super technical, because I have more data points right there, right? And it was unable to ever close there. 3 data points there, you know, 3 here, and then that test. So, I mean, go for it. But to me, maybe I'll look at closing it when I'm over 178. But I don't know that I'd be in a big hurry here. I mean, everything's fixed. You know, I'm not trying to sound facetious, John. I'm just looking at it going, yeah, I get it. We're going to go up today because people took too large of short positions because they thought everything was going to go to 0 in a day. I got it. So now we know why we're bouncing, but nothing's fixed. Did the CDSs of Deutsche Bank, did they drop? Are they cut in half? Right? Did they get rid of the protection? The people that own the bonds, did they get rid of their protection? No, they didn't. Did commercial banks stop defaulting on buildings, or commercial lender or commercial REITs stop defaulting on buildings? No, they didn't. So I'd be real careful here with the banks until this solves itself out. And I would use the rallies to fade. And I'll be real clear here. So like I listen a lot, and it's just how I traded, John. So I listen a lot to the institutional desks because that's how they move, right? That's how the market moves, right? It might move from the algos and everybody else. The institutional desks that I listened to this morning are being very, very clear and saying, short the rally, fade any rally. Okay, that's what they're telling their clients to do. That's what they're telling their institutional clients to do. So despite what they're telling the street, the people that have institutional money and manage institutional money, they're telling them to fade it, right? Meaning that when the market goes up to like 440, you should be fading it. That's what institutions are telling their clients this morning. So doesn't mean they're always right, but you might want to pay attention to that because that'll tell you about the sentiment of the market. And I'll tell you where people's heads are. So I hope that's helpful. But that's how I view things. So, and let's go to this. And I don't know why you keep doing that there. All right, there we go. REGN looks great. KBH looks great. I like KBH a lot. That makes a lot of sense to me, actually, because what happens is people buy houses when rates come down and also during banking crisis, right? So when rates come down, this is when they buy. I like this name a lot. And I think it makes a lot of sense here. So it's definitely one that I would be looking at. And I get it. I do. I get that. This can absolutely push higher. I don't know how, you could look at this and think that it's not going to, but it could absolutely continue to work its way up and get back up to, 50 over time. It definitely can do that. So it's definitely one that I would be watching. Sure. I get that. And it's one that I get it. I understand why you would be interested in that name. Out of the names that you just gave me, that would be one that I would be paying attention to. It's one that I am paying attention to. This looks like news. I don't get this, but there's your earnings. You're trying. These are not my kind of trades. I'll just show you them. So here's your DTL, right? It tries to break, bonk, bonk, flag, breaks out of the flag, goes sideways, gap, gap. So now I've got 2 gaps, and I'm coming right into my first test. So that's not really my kind of trade. REGN. So they had really good news the other day. I think if people weren't as focused on the banks and they were paying attention to this, they might have traded it, right? And they probably did well with it. I'm not buying it up here. I know they had really good data. I know people like it. You're not in a breakaway market. So the idea that I should be buying something that is hitting all-time highs right now is probably not what I'm going to do. I see it. I get it. It's not where I want to be right now, because they're the first that are going to come in if this gets harder. And I just don't want to be left holding the bag right now. I'm being very cautious here until I see the banking issue straighten itself out. I want to be clear about this, guys. Like nothing can ruin your day more than a banking crisis. Like nothing. So, like of all the things that are going to ruin your day, it's the banking crisis. I mean, that's definitely what's going to do it. And you just have to think like that. Like you have to make a decision. Are you willing to do that? Are you willing to, put yourself in that position? Like that's up to you. It's not something that I don't know why hold on, this thing just opened up. It's not something that I'm overly interested in taking too much risk here. I want to watch what happens here. I would love nothing more than, my short in FRC to go completely against me so that everything's rosy and fine. But I just don't see it yet. I really don't. So I think we have a lot of work to do here, guys. If you're looking for a rah guy, I'm probably not it here until I see this actually settle in. I'll still trade and I'll trade around, but that's pretty much it. What's up, Jake? Toll, huge cup and handle. Yeah, Toll looks great. Well, you have peak rates. I mean, let's be real clear about that. Like rates have peaked, and anyone that says that rates haven't peaked, they're just wrong. I mean, I'm just going to be that blunt about it. Max, this was a name we were trading at like in the 40s. We started buying this down here. I think it was like 47 or something. I like it. I don't like that particular setup, but I do like it. I mean, this has a lot of work to do, but I like the space a lot. And I don't know that there's an edge here in this particular name. So if I go through these and I take a look, you take a look at Toll Brothers and you take a look at some of these others, I would be looking for the ones that came out with earnings and crushed. I would also be looking at the ones, that's not my kind of trade either, like something like this, like where you have rallies, right? Now I'm back down here. I'd watch this name. I'd let it prove itself before I get involved. The thing with Toll is like Toll is selling that McMansion, right? KBH is selling you a $200,000 to $300,000 home. Okay, very different price point, right? The reason why KBH is more interesting, in my opinion, and you can go take a look at NVR, which runs the scope, right? The reason that these are more appealing to me, when I say runs the scope, different price points, where, Tolls, I think it's like average is like 700 or something for their homes. Because people are sick of paying rent. So if rates come down and they can buy a home and they're buying a home, they put $10,000 down on the house or whatever you put down on the house, right? And then their payments $1,000 a month and they own it versus leasing for $3,000 a month or $4,000, whatever you're leasing for, right? Doesn't matter. But, the average lease has gone up considerably considering inflation and the lack of housing. You're going to buy these kinds of names, Max, because these are the kinds of names that people are going to want to, they're going to want to own. They're going to want to own this house. They're not going to want to own they're not going to want to go and stretch themselves. So also as personal savings rates come down, the higher end housing market scares me a little bit, but the rates will definitely affect it. Yeah, they'll be really good. Johnson & Johnson. Yeah, Johnson & Johnson looks pretty good here, actually, guys. And I mean, I'm going to be real clear about this. Like today's newsletter, when it goes out, you'll see the comparisons that I'm going to show, and they're pretty staggering what's going on. I would not rule this out. This is not the one that I would be buying, but I would not rule this out that this could turn around. But you need to be looking out very long-term buying that here. You need to be looking out like a year if you're buying something like this, because you have so much work to do. I mean, there's just so much work here. There's so many data points and so many areas that you need to get through. So until you do that, I definitely, I don't know. You got to have a long-term outlook here. That's all I can tell you. I wouldn't be doing anything more than that. But I think you just have to continue to watch what's going on here. MTH building space. I'll take a look. TTCF. Let's take a look. So TTCF. Yeah, that's not my kind of trade. I mean, you can try. It could work, but I mean, I wouldn't go near that. I mean, you have these companies like that. I don't know this one. I don't know Meritage that well. I don't, maybe I would want to see the earnings come through probably first before I got super heavy into it. But, a lot of these trade at book value, and you want to watch that, see where you're at value wise. KBH, their earnings were just through the roof. And I think that that's going to continue. That's why I like that. Lenair is very similar. I don't know Meritage. I don't know their price point. I don't know them well. I think it's pretty clear which one looks the best, in my opinion. I think it's pretty clear that this one may have been mispriced, and you saw that on the earnings. And pardon me, we're looking for $1.13, came in at $1.45. Yeah, they were off 40 million, 50 million in revenue. So, I mean, it tells you that's all volume, guys. So do with that what you will. What's going on, KD? Hey, Timo. Yep. So I would tell you to look at those kinds of banks, FCNCA, those kinds of banks. If you had a big move like that, you're definitely going to want to pay attention. I think that you have to think about it from a different perspective, though. Like, yeah, that's great. I certainly, if you were short this, you have a real problem this morning. And I would not be shorting the banks that are coming out and being able to buy assets, because those banks have been looked at 10 ways to Sunday. And there's no way in the world they're going to let that happen right now. Right. And this does release some pressure, because it's telling people like, oh, okay, well, people are going to buy the banks. Even if the equity goes to zero, they're still going to buy the banks. And, you have a lot of positive comments on Deutsche Bank. That's going to add to it as well. People saying, oh, it's completely overdone. So, that's going to move the whole market, guys. But, I'm going to need to see a little bit of, I'm going to have to see a little bit more than just someone buying assets of a bank that failed to get excited. And I think that everyone's a little ahead of themselves, but we'll see. Oh, you couldn't see the drawings. Oh, that's interesting. So, Cat, what's going on, Joy? Cat and LMT. So I'd be real careful with that, Cat. I'd be really, really careful here. So if things start to slow, which they are slowing, and they're going to slow, then you don't want to be buying Cat. You don't want to be buying Deere. You don't want to be buying industrials. So they actually go down, and you started to see signs of that when they got up here. So I wouldn't be going near those names. I'd be staying away from them, Joy. They're not names that I would be buying. LMT, I mean, sure. The way the world's going right now, it's crazy. But, maybe, I don't know. I don't know. I don't see any real edge there. Like, what are we going to do there? Like, how do we benefit? Right? Like, every time we're over our level where we're sitting, we have a problem. So do I really want to be that guy that's getting involved there? And I'm not sure that I do. I'm not sure that I want to be that person that, is doing that right there. So to me, I would watch that and, kind of go from there. I don't know that it's something that I would really be paying attention to until I saw more. I would want to see way, way more than that. I can't make fun of my drawings. First, no. First Citizens is buying SIVB assets. They do that in the rural US. They do it a lot. NVTS. Let's take a look. So I can't stress this enough, guys, and please like the video. I purposely don't run ads to not bother people, even in the other videos. So if you like them, share them. I really don't want to run ads. It does play with the algorithm because I won't run ads in the middle of it. They would prefer that I did. I I don't know. I mean, where's my edge on this trade? Like, what do I have going for me that would make me say that I need to buy this? Right? I tried to clear the first hurdle. I got rejected. I have no volume above anything above an average volume. So it's not my kind of trade. I mean, maybe they're coming out with a new widget or something that's going to be like the next big widget, and you're playing something on a fundamental side. You start looking here and going, okay, well, there's a double bottom. Okay, double bottom confirms when you flip the first higher high from the first level, right? From the first part of the double bottom. That's the actual confirm. So that's 830. You tried once and you failed, came back down, took out a new low. I don't know enough here to tell you that you have to look at this. I don't even need moving averages or anything. You just tell by looking at it. So go from there and see how this plays out. But I would just be real careful, guys. Megatech, yes. I would not be shorting any of those names. I would not be shorting Apple. I would not be shorting any of them. They may work, but you are fighting a tide. I think this looks great. I really do. I think this looks really good, Chuck. Like really good. And it's doing everything you want it to do. So we talked about like, well, where's your edge, right? And then you see, well, we just made a higher high. Okay, so now I've got a technical pattern that's making a higher high. So now you have my attention. I've got this long red nasty bar here, right, that you were unable to get above. I can actually draw that a little bit better, can I? Right here, right? So we're unable to get above that, right? Okay, so technically I know that I have a really good pattern here. Here's my follow-through bar, and I've got above average volume on all my clouds. I have several different clouds down here, and I've got this SMA line, right? I didn't create this. Someone else did. I just modified it for my settings and what I look at. But if you look at this, I don't know how you don't think that this is a possibility. I really don't. Oh, you can't see my wonky drawings. I have to do it this way. You can see that, right? So I don't know how you're not thinking that this has the potential to get up there. I mean, if the market's going to go, that's going to go. My larger concern over everything, guys, is the fact that the S&P is leading. And people say, well, the S&P is going to lead because banks are oversold. Are they? I mean, maybe. You know, maybe not. Maybe that's all we're seeing is an oversold bounce. I don't know. I know that I'm not seeing anybody come out with any major solution to all the banks except telling me that banks are fine. It seems to be that the fact that you're just going to tell us the banks are fine, that we're just supposed to go, okay. And, you know, I'm just not really going to believe people, to be honest. And I'd be really careful here. And I'm going to leave you with this. If you're going to buy banks, focus on the ones that were allowed to buy assets. Okay. Because they're the ones that the FDIC have checked repeatedly. Okay. We can have our opinion on FRC. People can differ from me, right? 2 weeks ago, or I was all over it. I was buying the preferred PAC. I was buying the preferred. I did well with this trade. I did well with the preferred trade. The issue, right, is this. The issue, like with something like this, is these kinds of trades should not have been going sideways. I should not be getting 17% interest for weeks. This trade should have gone like this, right? Because it's a debt instrument. And then when you find out that this debt is safe, maybe you do this, and then you're doing this. Okay. If you know the debt instrument is safe, that is not what I'm doing, right? I'm forming an H, a big H. And maybe the crack's not today. Maybe it's in a week. Maybe there is no crack. But focus, if you want to buy the banking sector, I wouldn't even look at the sectors themselves. I would only look at banks that were allowed to buy other assets, because you don't have the time to do a forensic accounting on a bank. The FDC does, right? The FDIC does. And they've done forensic accounting on this bank, FCN, CA, and they definitely did it on this one, which is the only bank that I'm long right now is this bank. It's the only one that I'm actually long is this bank right now. And I want to buy Goldman, but they're my two. And I'm certainly not paying up $300 for a bank. I mean, okay, like it's just insane, right? Where this is going. And, you could have played it pre-market, but I'm not going to buy that. I mean, on what? 60 shares, 80 shares. Here's your big bar, 1,000 shares. I mean, I'm not buying that. Like, that's just crazy. So, keep that in mind. But they're the ones that I would be looking at, guys. They're the ones that I would be getting involved with and go from there. Rates drop. People want to protect capital. Go look at the recession. Any recession, people buy it. People buy a home. Any recession, people buy a home. ON. Yeah, I think that looks like a group. I mean, to me, it's a really good short. I would not be chasing that. I'd be super careful here. I think anything like this is going to have a massive problem. Anything like this is going to have a massive, massive problem if this market comes in hard, because you have so many people that are in this name that just bought it, that are buying it in here. And you can just look at that real clear by just going and just looking at volume by price, right? And let's just zoom in on this section so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. So you look at, the amount of volume here versus the amount of volume for the rest of the month, and it's night and day, right? You go back a little further, you can see my point. I mean, you actually have to go back like 2 months to even get into what these, right? You have to literally go back 2 months to get with one of these bars has. Like, it's pretty crazy the amount of people that are up here. So yeah, I'd be careful there. Could it keep going? Sure, it could, but I can't stress this enough, guys. I'm going to jump. You need to be really, really careful here. It's the last time I'm going to say it. Just because you're bidding up today, I don't see anything fixed, and I'm trying to be very vocal. Like, just see if things get fixed. See if you flip our 440, and if you do, great. And then maybe you go from there. But anything, in my opinion, should just be rented, unless you're looking super long term and you're seeing and you're playing the shift, right? Because there's obviously a shift, so we can all see that shift, and we'll go from there. All right, everybody, have a great day. Yes, honey, I did.